Hello, hello, hello. This is the Vanilla JavaScript podcast. I'm Chris Ferdinandi. Thanks so much for joining me. Today, I'm talking about the end of Internet Explorer. I know. It sounds too good to be true. So, Internet Explorer 11 is a lot better than IE9 and IE10, but it's still not great. So many of the awesome new JavaScript methods work in every browser except IE. So newer DOM manipulation methods like element remove or element before and element after to make it really easy to add and remove elements from the DOM. The fetch API, template literals, which make templating with strings so much easier. Array and object destructuring, default argument values and functions. These are all amazing things that don't work in IE. And you can polyfill a lot of this stuff, like the element methods, fetch API. Those can be polyfilled, but template literals, destructuring, default arguments, those can't. IE has been the last holdout of a stagnated web, an era when browsers didn't automatically update themselves, and you had to take into account what version of a browser someone was using when you were building things. I'm a big fan of progressive enhancement and deep backwards compatibility, but I was utterly delighted this summer to read that Microsoft is finally sunsetting IE11 and Legacy Edge, which is the non-Chromium original version before they switched over to Chromium and Blink. So in their announcement, which I'll link to in the show notes, they wrote, quote, "Today, we're announcing that Microsoft 365 apps and services will no longer support Internet Explorer 11 by this time next year. Beginning November 30th, 2020, the Microsoft Teams web app will no longer support IE11. Beginning August 17th, 2021, so summer of next year, the remaining Microsoft 365 apps and services will no longer support IE11. This means that after the above dates, customers will have a degraded experience or will be unable to connect to Microsoft 365 apps and services on IE11. For degraded experiences, the new Microsoft 365 features will not be available, or certain features may cease to work when accessing the app or service via IE11. Now, I'm not typically a fan of average developers refusing to support certain browsers, but I do think it's a good thing when companies that make and maintain those legacy browsers drop support for them. So I kind of get some pushback on this sometimes, or I have people kind of wondering what the difference is there. And so for me, like you or I refusing to support IE11 means that a bunch of corporate users with lockdown computers who have no control over what browser is on it can't use the things that we make. Microsoft doing it forces the companies that are using these crappy legacy browsers to rethink their system defaults and make changes. It has a seismic shift across corporate America, which is honestly where a lot of heavier IE use takes place. And now we have a timeline. I reserve my right to change my mind here, but at this moment, I plan to drop IE support for future projects starting early to mid next year. And the important thing to caveat here is this doesn't mean that Microsoft is dropping support altogether for IE. The browser will live on for another few years. I forget the exact deprecation date they set on Internet Explorer, but I believe it's not until like 2024 or something like that. It's a few years out. So let's see. I just did a quick Google search or DuckDuckGo search to see if I could find it. Yeah, it's not expected to go away for a few years after that. But I didn't realize this. IE11 has been around since 2013. So that's a really old browser. So at any rate, the browser will probably still live on in some kind of manner in pockets of the world. But I think if Microsoft is saying the things we build won't work in this browser we don't maintain that much anymore, it's probably going to be okay for you or I to do it. And that's a beautiful thing. We're still going to need to polyfill some things here and there. But a lot of those cool new features that just can't be polyfilled, not going to be an issue anymore. So that's that's something that's awesome that I'm really excited for. Anyways, that's it for today. If you want to finally master JavaScript, head over to vanillajsguides.com and check out my pocket guides and video courses. As a listener of the show, you can take 30% off with the code podcast at checkout. See you next time. Cheers.